Some of my friends have told me to lower my expectations, and I'm like, if I lower them even further, they will trip over them. I don't expect that much.
Half of the viewers are going to laugh at the women for being too entitled, high standards, hitting the wall, or some goofy picture sent with an egg carton. But the point of this video isn't to pretend girls like this are some surrogate ex-girlfriend we can scapegoat and yell at to feel better about ourselves. The other half of people will watch this and sympathize with the plight of women, chastise men for not being better, and shame anybody who says otherwise. But the point of this video isn't to pretend men are trash and where have all the good men gone and take more responsibility and clean your room. The status quo is a meat grinder of naive, under-matured children going to each side of the gym in a virtual dodgeball game of boys versus girls where everyone is mad at everybody else, it's all their fault, and we can live in misery because things just happen and we can hope life hands out a win one day. People are living in a fantasy world and plausible deniability. Let them have their stories. This is the sad tale of the epiphany phase. The idea of what happens when people fail at love lives and what can be done about it. The first clip is about being ghosted. Now, everybody's been ghosted, everybody's been lied to, but not everybody accepts that they opted into the lie. I'm hoping on this one, this is actually sincere. I'm treating it as sincere, so I may look really stupid right now if this is all just an elaborate act, but carry on.
Said what happened to me was future faking, love bombing, and then ghosting, and that actually happened to a lot of people. I hadn't even known what future faking was until I looked it up, and apparently future faking and love bombing are forms of narcissistic abuse that are often employed by men on dating apps. Both deal with like an onslaught of affection and promises, and then often they're followed by just ghosting the woman.
Now, I'm going to put aside the visual of applying face paint while talking about deceptive sexual strategies. That speaks for itself. She uses the term fake futuring and narcissistic behavior, and this is why people are miserable. Everybody is an unhealthy narcissist, and if you learn nothing else about them, learn this. Everything is about them, but blame.
I just don't get the absurdity of the lying. Like, I didn't go into a Tinder date expecting Hallmark movie fantasy realness. Why are you pointing to houses and saying things like that could be ours one day? First, they say these things because they think women want to hear them. Second, many men think it's just absolutely normal to do this, when really it's just indicative of very worrying behavioral patterns. And this man who just engaged in very manipulative, narcissistic behavior is a teacher. I can't even put myself in the mindset of not feeling bad about doing something like that to someone. And this is coming from someone who steals things from people.
If you still don't get it, fake futuring is a guy lying and telling a girl what she wants to hear in order to sleep with her. Now, I get it. Lying is bad. I get it. When we go down that rabbit hole of deceptive practices in the dating market, nobody's going to come off looking good. Put that aside too. I'm talking here about an ego defense. There's a reason that fake futuring works so well, and she knows it too down in her heart of hearts. I mean, basic body language. When she's talking about a date with a guy who's talking about a house and kids, she can't stop smiling. Those are unconscious behaviors. Our body cannot lie the way our mouth can. She wanted the fantasy. She wanted to be told the fantasy. Now, I don't know how they acted outside of whatever details she gave here, but that doesn't really matter, because in my experience, when people tell you their stories, they crop out the details that they don't find important. So every detail here is the one that mattered. Another aspect of this is one that many clueless men have, where women are some kind of Machiavellian masterminds who are ready to catfish you, get married, pop out a kid, and then divorce you for cash and prizes. I mean, that's the dream. But they aren't dark triad masterminds. They're just women. It's clear that people who get fake futured are missing something in their own strategies. I'm going to reference Dr. David Buss here, an Evo Psych professor who studied this stuff for his entire career, and he points out female behavior. In this case, the commitment, skepticism, bias. Now, what this means is that women are inherently distrustful of cheap commitment signals. And this is because, cave women who learned to hold out ended up having a loyal cave dad, and the cave babies survive more often. And so it's something we've selected for. And this is the key part. The key part is, even though it's hardwired, even though it's instinctive behavior, even though it's technically a life-saving strategy, and it has been for as long as we've been, modern man, it doesn't mean women are good at it. Far from it. Now, as for deception and cheap investment signals go, is it a sexual strategy? Is it red-pilled? No. Why? It's because it's lying. Now, this isn't some lying is always wrong and you should never do it, moral posturing. I'm not going to go there. But notice.
And this man who just engaged in very manipulative, narcissistic behavior is a teacher.
If you didn't pick up on that thinly veiled thread, it's possible in this day and age for a jilted woman to attempt to ruin a man's career and his life for stuff like this. Now, it's not always going to work, and there's plenty of strategies, and deceptive cheek signals are just not the most effective and have way too much risk attached to them. Plus, you don't really need them. And the other part is about the offloading of responsibility. Someone with the self-awareness would understand that they bought into this lie and they went along with it. Now, people only get conned, they only get grifted when they're selfish or afraid or greedy. Sometimes all three. Instead, the man in this example had to have a mental disorder, so we wash our hands of it. It's not my fault. Swipe the next guy, move on. The reason I love the red-pilled framework for dating, the reason I love the red-pilled framework for relationships is that it forces men to be self-aware enough to realize they have a culpability, and that's the part they can change, and that's what they need to do. If you don't want to lose your job to some social media attack because of somebody you ghosted, plausible deniability, not lying. Let them have their story. I mean, she'll still be pissed when you ghost, but you haven't given her the rope to hang you with. It's not pointing at houses and saying you want to be a father. It's saying maybe. It's saying I haven't met the right girl yet. It's always putting that challenge up there. It's not outright telling her what your plans for your life are. It's that shot to reality, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later. The point is, the typical girl in this situation isn't trying to solve a problem. The typical girl in this situation wants to emote. And the sizable amount of commenters in this example here that are cheering her on are more than happy to fuel this downward spiral for entertainment value. I have a video where I make an egg sandwich and tell you about how women have been lied to for their entire lives. And this is a great example.
In college, I used to be friends with this professor, and one day he said to me, men actually have it harder than women. And instantly I was like, fuck you. But recently I've thought more about it, and I think there's a point to it. Hear me out. Little boys, on the other hand, are given unrealistic expectations for reality. They're told straight up lies like you can do anything you want, you can have anything you want. And positivity to that extent is toxic. Socialization as a woman encourages the development of critical thinking, hence why women go into detailed analysis about social interaction. We're constantly trying to assess our circumstances to ensure our safety. Men and boys are not incentivized to think critically in the same way. Because if society is already nice to you, why would you ever question it?
Who has it harder? It's a weird case here of projection is perception. Now, I would talk about the why and the how, but frankly, it's just not worth it. This is literally somebody being lied to their entire lives. Every man wants to smash. Every woman wants cheap, shallow camaraderie. There's no incentive for a young woman to get honest looks at the world around them because nobody wants to tell them the truth. Until the epiphany phase. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's a term coined by author Rollo Tomassi. Quoting, "This is the point of transition at which women realize their decaying capacity to hypergamously compete with women in their sexual primes, and at the point that men are beginning to realize their own increasing value potential." Now, take 10 years of dating experience, the aforementioned lack of introspection, the complete denial of reality by friends and family and potential lovers. Add to that plenty of deceptive dating practices from blue-pilled sexual strategies, and a hind-brained acknowledgement that youth and beauty are depreciating assets, you generally get the female version of getting zeroed out. Now again, if you don't know that term, being zeroed out was again coined by Rollo Tomassi. Men having most of a lifetime of status, financial equity, reputation, professional and educational growth, emotional investment, and other metrics of a man's quality of life equity being erased. He describes it like this, but in psychological terms, it's where delusion meets reality. It's where the brain experiences a trauma and is forced to change its current collection of mental models of the world, in order to adapt. It's a sort of trauma. Like for a man, it's where he bases his life on being a good provider and a strong father and a great husband who's the pillar of his community, and watching a wife who's bored with this life removing all of it. He thought he was the patriarch, but it was at the whims of a woman. Many guys take a permanent out over it. It's very sad. And for a woman, this is her equivalent. The world isn't always nice. The men who say realistic things are not just big meanie heads. Men and women lie. And the main reason everybody treated you so well is because of your looks. Oh, and you only get to figure this out once it's too late to capitalize on the knowledge. It's like the story of Narcissus and Echo, where the oracle told the guy's parents he'll have a long life so long as he never knows himself, and so they hid Narcissus from his reflection his entire life. The story you know is that Narcissus was so beautiful that everybody wanted to be with him, but he rejected them all. Nope, not good enough. One rejected lover was furious and begged Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance, for retribution. If Narcissus ever falls in love, don't let the love be returned. So Nemesis heard the prayer and caused Narcissus to fall in love with himself. He was led to a pool of water, and when he looked into it, he fell in love with what he saw. And what he saw wasn't real, so of course it couldn't love him back. But Narcissus sat patiently, forever, hoping that one day that beautiful person in the bottom of the pool was going to come out and love him. You should take note of the first easy lesson. If nobody ever seems right for you, and then one person who does seem right doesn't want you, then the problem isn't the person, the problem is you. In the same way that I've talked before in many videos about how men are being raised as defective women, in this case, a lot of women are being raised as defective men. And in this case, narcissism, the male mental disorder, is being imparted onto girls. And this is kind of the reaction that you're seeing from it. And for women, this is the equivalent. The men who say realistic things are not big meanie heads. Men are not always nice. Sometimes they lie because they want to sleep with you and they don't know how to turn you on any other way, and it's a frustrated Sisyphean task, I get it. And if you're wondering why this goofy misogynist is here empathizing with the women, that's not the point of this either. There are no good guys in this story. There's only people and their messy lives. Now in this first part, I painted the picture of a poor woman, a sympathetic tragedy, lied to her whole life, missing the one thing she wanted in life, to be happy and in love. Treated horribly by a man who lied and promised the world, then left when it wasn't rewarded by a blowjob in an alleyway. But this next part, this is why the red-pilled man doesn't cry too much.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead.
Getting ready for a virtual date, so I only have to look good from here up. I ghosted this guy for about a month, so I'm not really sure what he sees in me. Men are like tumors. Sometimes they're benign. My psychiatrist did tell me to make a physical list of qualities I wanted in a man, and so I did that. And my friends read over it, and they were like, "You're just describing yourself." I said, but I'm not rich.
So you see this very sympathetic character in this TikTok Greek tragedy. You see a perfectly nice and attractive man, great job, lots of money. It's the age-old argument among men over whether looks or money or game is what a guy should capitalize on.
I don't want to be too hard on the guy because he did everything he was supposed to do except maintain a conversation, and I recognize that is hard for some people. I do want to recognize my privilege as a woman. Society traumatized me into having a personality, and not all men are that lucky. He had a funny bio, so I feel like I got personality catfished. Your mother obviously did your homework in school. Did she also write your OkCupid bio? Just sucks because he was a really sweet guy and he was really attractive.
I mean, bodybuilding types and ugly virgins think looks are all that matters. Status-driven millionaires and broke neats swear that money is all that matters, and neither one worked here. Game is all that matters. To get to the point, there is a great post by a wonderfully talented red-pilled man, pen name Archwinger, brings up the concept of plausible deniability. Let her have her story, and this is why. While that lying teacher was a prick, the nice, attractive doctor has to rub out some knuckle children in his living room instead of a perfectly average-looking woman who wanted a good-looking man with money, but still wanted nothing to do with him. She's playing a game of plausible deniability. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you like, or what you think, or what you feel, you're weaving an experience for her, like a dream that sweeps her away. Fun, comfortable, discreet, non-judgmental, an almost transient experience where it just happens, like magic. The reason she's so irate with that future faking man wasn't because he was faking, it was because he stopped. You don't have to lie. Sometimes it means you can be honest. This is kind of the red pill attitude on this one. A maybe or I just haven't met the right woman yet is honest, upfront, achieves the same effect, and has that plausible deniability that prevents somebody from blowing up your job over broken promises. So yes, this sympathetic character meets the right man according to that checklist and she ghosted him for a month. She's so frustrated as to proclaim she hates men. Now remember my story earlier about Narcissus? Gets her friends to describe the qualities in a man, and in so describes herself. Frankly, this is the part where I'm kind of thinking, this has to be an act. But there's been a lot of times where I think somebody's putting this stuff on because it just fits way too well, and then you find out, no, it's just really that accurate. So remember my story of Narcissus? Describing the qualities in a man, she described herself. And if nobody ever seems right for you, and then the one person who does seem right doesn't want you, then the problem isn't the person, the problem is you. So he did everything he was supposed to, but he didn't let her have her fantasy. She felt something on the bio that wasn't in real life. Personality catfish, she called it. And it's the same cycle all over again. It wasn't about her poor judgment. It wasn't about his ability to drive the chemistry. It wasn't that she was boring. After all, she was there every time she was turned on by a man, and he was there the one time she wasn't, so it's clearly his fault. Nothing learned, everybody moves along, and nobody gets any happier. Remember, these are the kind of people that call guys like you and me toxic. We think poorly of our fellow humans. We are mean, we're nihilistic, we're misogynist, and I think we're trying to capture the Smurfs like Gargamel. But this is the lesson. Plausible deniability. Let her have her story. Girls don't want reality. Reality is the depressing story of a 28 to 35-year-old woman talking into a cell phone with a ring light because she's going to go out and roll the same rock up the hill, only to have it roll back down and have to do it again tomorrow. It's the Sisyphean curse. It's the only thing we know for sure is that women are perfect just the way they are, and if anything goes wrong, well then it's all your fault. And so, what do? Well, you play the world's smallest violin for the largely sympathetic character living a life of their own making and disliking it. Do what you do. Be attractive, stop being unattractive, don't lie, but provide plausible deniability. Game the people in your life, let them have the stories that they want, and do your thing. And when it's all over, once girls start to see that you're their best hypergamous option, they start to act better. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in my friends' lives. I've seen it in hundreds of guys' lives, talking about it. The party girls we used to hang out with ghosted the party life once they found a man to settle down with, the one they were into. It was like meeting an entirely different person. It's the romantic version of grabbing a homeless man off the street, giving him a shower and a hot meal, and finding out he has the voice of a Greek god. Of course, it's just as likely the homeless man is a meth addict and will stab you in your sleep so he can steal your shoelaces, so be safe out there.
Some of my favorite things about women, how supportive they are by and large of men. Having this ambition, trying to go out and accomplish things in life. It means so much to a guy to have a girl be supportive like that. I love the way girls smell. They always make sure, by and large, they shower, and they just have an amazing smell to them in general.